They told us the Americans would beat us. They told us they would starve us. They told us they would work us to death in fields until our bones broke. But the first thing an American did was hand me a pair of gloves. That moment shattered everything I believed about the enemy. And it was only my first 5 minutes on American soil. My name is Giovanni Bianchi, though everyone back home called me Nino. I was 23 years old when I was captured in North Africa. I had survived heat that burned the skin off your back, sandstorms that felt like the world was being erased, and hunger that made a man forget his own birthday. But nothing prepared me for the quiet shock of that first morning in America. Now, in my old age, with my hands trembling for reasons unrelated to cold, I tell this story so my grandchildren, and perhaps even you, can understand how war can twist truth and how kinness can untwist it just as fast. This is how it began. I remember the sound before anything else. The truck slammed to a stop, metal chains rattled, and someone shouted for the doors to be opened. Then came the blast of cold air, sharp, unforgiving, completely unlike anything from Sicily or Tunisia. It hit us like a bucket of ice water. When the door swung upward, light flooded in. Not warm sunlight, this was a pale, winter-thin light that seemed to carry no heat at all. We climbed out one by one, boots scraping onto frost, so white and fine it looked like crushed glass. My first thought was simple and terrifying. This is the end of the world. Ahead of us, stretching farther than I could see, were fields, endless rows of harvested corn, broken stalks poking from frozen soil. A red barn sat at the top of a small rise, with smoke curling from the chimney of a farmhouse nearby. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere, a tractor coughed to life. This did not look like the place where enemies were supposed to torture us. But fear does not listen to scenery. We stood in formation automatically. Not because anyone barked at us, we had been trained to obey before we even heard the order. My coat was thin, more suited for desert nights than Midwestern mornings. The wind cut through it like a blade. My fingers already felt numb. Then I saw them. Not soldiers, farmers. A man with a face deeply lined from sun and years of work. A woman in a wool coat, holding a steaming mug. And behind a fence, 2 children peeking at us as if we were circus performers or strange animals from a far continent. They did not glare. They did not spit. They did not appear disgusted. They simply looked. And that alone confused me more than anything, because before capture, and even during it, we had been told the same thing over and over. Americans have no mercy. Americans are savages. Americans will make you suffer. But the faces watching us were ordinary, curious, almost gentle. It made no sense. The guards lined us up and began taking count. They were firm but not brutal. Their rifles were ready, but their eyes were not hateful. "Move along," one said. "No rush. No rush." Never in my military life had I been told not to rush. Even that felt like an insult to everything I thought I knew. Then, something happened that I still struggle to explain. The older farmer, the one with the lined face, walked straight toward me. I froze, certain he was coming to strike me, or scream, or spit. My heart hammered so loudly I thought he could hear it. He stopped a few feet away, studying me quietly. Then he looked down at my hands. They were shaking violently in the cold. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a pair of wool gloves. Old, patched, worn, nothing impressive, but warm. He held them out to me. I didn't take them. I couldn't. I thought it was a test, a trick, a humiliation waiting to happen. So he took my wrist gently, turned my palm upward, and placed the gloves in my hand. "For you," he said. "Just that, for you. Cold today." His voice was calm, not mocking, not angry. I stared at him, unable to speak. I must have looked like a fish gasping on shore. Behind me, one of the other POWs whispered, "Dio mio," another muttered, desperate to make sense of it. "It's a trick. It must be a trick." But the warmth spreading through my fingers told me it wasn't. As we were led toward the barn, the 2 children followed us along the fence, giggling at our accents and ragged uniforms. One boy waved at me. Without thinking, I waved back. And in that tiny moment, embarrassingly small, almost silly, I felt something loosen in my chest. A knot I didn't know I was carrying unraveled just a little. A child's wave. A pair of gloves. A morning on a farm that looked nothing like the nightmare we had been promised. That was my first lesson in America. Sometimes kindness feels more dangerous than hate because it forces you to question everything you were taught. I didn't know it yet, but that day was the start of something that would follow me for the rest of my life. If I am honest, that first morning would have been enough to confuse me for a week. But the surprises did not stop with a pair of gloves. No, America had many ways of shaking the beliefs we carried across the ocean, and it wasted no time doing so. After the wave from the children and the strange, impossible moment of kindness from the old farmer, we were led toward the barn. My fingers warmed slowly inside the wool gloves, each heartbeat reminding me that something about this place was different, dangerously different. Because kindness, when you expect cruelty, feels like a trap you want to fall into. We reached a long wooden table set up near the barn. A few soldiers stood behind it, and beside them were crates, wooden, stamped with U.S. Army labels. Some of the men stiffened immediately. Food crates in Africa had sometimes meant scraps tossed at prisoners, or moldy bread that even rats refused. But these crates smelled good, warm, fresh, like something made for humans. "Step forward," a guard said. One at a time. We obeyed, unsure, still shivering. The first man in line, Luigi, from Naples, approached the table slowly. A soldier pulled something from the crate and set it in front of him. Luigi's eyes widened. A roll of bread, soft, white, still warm. He didn't touch it. Maybe he thought it was bait. Maybe he thought someone would slap his hand away as soon as he reached for it. Maybe he simply couldn't believe that enemy soldiers would waste soft bread on POWs. The guard frowned, confused. "Take it," he said. "Eat." Luigi swallowed. His lips trembled. Then his hunger overpowered his fear, and he picked up the bread with both hands as if afraid it would vanish if he held it too lightly, and bit into it. A sound escaped him, something between a sigh and a sob, and that sound, it broke something in all of us, because we hadn't tasted soft bread in months. In Africa, we ate crusts so hard they could break a tooth. We chewed until our jaws ached and still swallowed pieces sharp as stones. But this bread, this simple, ordinary bread, felt like luxury. The soldier handed Luigi a second item. A bright red apple. Perfect, shiny, whole. "Eat," he repeated. Luigi stared at it for a long moment. I watched his fingers shake. I watched a tear gather in the corner of his eye. Then he whispered too softly for the Americans to hear, but loud enough for me. "My daughter hasn't seen an apple in a year." He took a bite. Juice ran down his chin. I will never forget that look on his face. Relief, shame, hunger, gratitude, pain, all of it tangled together in one moment. Because that was the contradiction we couldn't escape. We prisoners of war were being fed better than our families back home. When my turn came, the soldier placed a roll and an apple on the table. I reached out slowly, half expecting him to pull it back. Instead, he added a small piece of cheese on top, almost casually. "For you," he said. Those two words again, the same ones the farmer had used. I took the food. My hands shook, but not from the cold anymore. As we ate in silence, the guards continued handing out food. There were no taunts, no laughter at our hunger, no punishment for eating too fast. Just men doing their duty with a surprising, unsettling sense of fairness. One guard even looked annoyed not at us, but at the cold wind whipping across the field. He pointed at our thin uniforms and muttered to another soldier, "They should have given these guys coats before sending them here. These guys. Not animals, not enemies. These guys." The words sank in like warm water on frozen skin. After we finished eating, the farmer approached us again. He didn't carry any weapons, just a bucket of water and a tin cup tied to the handle with string. He set it down in front of us and made a motion with his hands that needed no translation. "Drink." One by one, we took turns drinking the cold, fresh water. When the cup passed to me, I looked up at him. His face was serious, but not hostile. "You work here," he said, tapping the ground with his boot. "You help. We help." It was simple English, broken even, but clear enough. Work for food. Food for work. Not punishment. Not torture. A trade. A human agreement. I nodded, stunned. Grazie, I whispered. He didn't understand the word, but he understood the tone. He gave a small nod in return. Behind us, some of the men began whispering. "This is a trick," Carlo hissed. "They want us calm, then they." But he didn't finish, because in that moment, the farmer's wife approached us carrying a tray, an actual tray of steaming mugs. I smelled it before I saw it. Coffee. Real coffee. Not scorched beans mixed with dirt like we brewed in Africa. Not thin brown water that tasted like sadness. No, this smelled rich, dark, alive. It smelled like mornings at home when my mother used to brew coffee on the small stove near the window. The woman smiled at a group of Italian POWs and held the tray out. One by one, we accepted the mugs. The warmth seeped through the tin and into our hands. Some men held the cups without drinking, just absorbing the heat, like starving plants soaking in sun. I took a sip, and for a brief second, maybe only the length of a heartbeat, I was home. I felt the Sicilian sun. I heard my mother's voice. I remembered who I was before the war. Coffee did that. Kindness did that. America did that. When I finished, I looked at the farmer. He nodded again, as if to say, "Now we begin." But it wasn't the work that began that day. It was the unraveling of lies, the unraveling of hate, the unraveling of everything fascism had hammered into our minds. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, was what we were told. If you asked me, back then, what I expected life as a prisoner in America to be, I would have told you, work until you drop, cold until you break, hunger until you beg. That was the image painted for us, the image hammered into our skulls. But the truth, the real truth, was something far quieter, something almost too ordinary to believe. Life on that farm did not feel like imprisonment, not in the way we had known it, not in the way we had feared it. It felt like routine, hard work, yes, but human work? The first morning began with a gentle ringing, not shouting, not a rifle butt slamming against a metal door. Just a small handbell, shaken by one of the American guards as the sky shifted from black to deep blue. I sat up on the straw mattress in the barn. My back cracked loudly, too loudly for a man in his 20s. But war ages people faster than time ever could. The barn smelled of hay, wood, and old dust. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cruelly cold either. We had blankets. Real blankets. Thick wool ones in army green. A luxury in its own right. The men stirred. Some stretched, some groaned, some muttered prayers. But we all did the same thing next. We checked for food. War teaches you something simple. The day is only as good as your first meal. And to our disbelief, breakfast came. A soldier opened the barn doors, letting in a slice of gold and orange sunlight that painted the frost outside in shimmering color. From the farmhouse came a smell, God, that smell, eggs, maybe, or oatmeal, and something frying in oil. "Follow," the guard called. We walked across the crunching frost, breath puffing in front of us. The air felt clean in our lungs, painfully clean, like we had forgotten what fresh air tasted like. Inside the farmhouse kitchen, not the house itself, just the back extension used for workers' breakfast waited on long tables, tin plates, slices of toast, warm oatmeal, a dollop of honey, and again, coffee. Carlo, the cynic of our group, stared at the toast as if it were a bomb. "This is too much," he whispered. "They are softening us." But even he ate. You cannot resist food when you've known real hunger. As I sat there, sipping bitter coffee, warming my fingers around the tin cup, I realized something. The farmers did not even watch us eat. They weren't waiting for us to make fools of ourselves. They were busy with their own routines, feeding animals, gathering tools, preparing for the day. We were just part of the morning, a strange, foreign extension of their farm life. After breakfast, we followed Mr. Thompson, yes, I still remember his name, into the cornfields. The fields stretched longer than any horizon I knew back home, endless rows of golden stalks, half-harvested, leaves crackling in the light wind. The ground was hard, but not cruel. The tools were old, but sturdy. He demonstrated the task slowly, how to pull the remaining dry ears, how to sort them, how to load them onto the wooden wagon. His movements were patient, honest. the gestures of a man who had done this every autumn for decades. Then, he pointed for us to try. I gripped the stalk, twisted, pulled. The corn came free with a dry snap. A simple thing, a human thing, a thing that did not require loyalty to any flag or uniform. Halfway down the row, Thompson noticed I was fumbling. He walked over, placed his hands over mine, corrected the angle, then stepped back with a nod. No words were needed, just a man teaching another man how to work. It was the first time since capture that I felt like myself, not a soldier, not a prisoner, just a person. Around mid-morning, the children returned. They were small, maybe 8 or 9 years old. They hid behind the fence, giggling, pointing at us like we were strange but fascinating birds. One girl had pigtails and a red scarf. She shouted, "Hi!" with all the confidence of childhood. We froze. In Italy, children were hiding in basements, fleeing bombers, clutching empty bowls. Here, they ran freely across fields, without fear, without hunger. The difference was painful to look at, but the girl kept waving, so I raised my hand and waved back. Her smile widened. Carlo hissed, "Don't interact with them," but even he couldn't help glancing over with soft eyes. War makes you forget what innocence looks like. Children remind you. By noon, we were sweating through our uniforms. Thompson handed out tin cups of water. The guard leaned against a fence post, chewing on a piece of hay, looking bored. When Thompson pointed to the wagon and said, "Load," I repeated it. "Load," I said, copying his accent badly. He laughed, a warm laugh, and nodded. Then I pointed at the corn and said, "Maize?" The Italian word. He repeated it awkwardly. "My S?" I nodded, grinning. And that was it. The first exchange. A tiny trade of language between enemies. Soon the others joined in. "Good," they said. "Buono," we replied. "Hello," "Ciao," "Friend," "Amico." The guard rolled his eyes, pretending to be annoyed, but I saw the corner of his mouth lift in amusement. Even the earth seemed softer under our feet that afternoon. Lunch was simple. Slices of bread, cold meat, potatoes, and a single orange to share between 2 men. But it was food. Real food. More than we had seen in months. We sat on overturned buckets or on the ground, steam rising from our mouths as we ate in the crisp air. Thompson sat a few yards away, eating his sandwich, glancing at us from time to time, but not suspiciously. More like one glances at stray cats who have decided to stay near the house. For a moment, the war felt 1,000 miles away. The fields were quiet. The sky was bright. The food was warm. And we were alive. That afternoon, as the sun lowered, we worked slower. Fatigue set in not from abuse, but from honest labor. The kind that makes your muscles ache in a good way. Thompson walked by, clapped me gently on the shoulder, and said, "Good work, good work. Not prisoner, not Italian, not enemy. Good work." 2 simple words that struck deeper than any insult ever had. Because recognition is a human need. Even prisoners know that. Even enemies feel it. And in that one moment, standing in a field in a country I had been taught to hate, I felt seen, not as a number, not as a tool, as a man. That was a day I will never forget. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because of the warmth hidden inside every small moment. A nod, a smile, a shared piece of language, a simple lunch, the rhythm of work on peaceful soil. These were the first threads of a truth that would unravel everything fascism taught us. The enemy was not a monster. The enemy was a farmer, a father, a human being. And we, surprisingly, were treated like the same. You can work in a field all day, cut your hands on dry stalks, freeze your ears in the wind, sweat through your shirt, and still feel lighter than air until the letters arrive. If the mornings on the farm were peaceful and almost comforting, the evenings were the opposite. They were when reality returned, when memory crawled back into our chests, when we remembered why we were there in the first place. It was after our 3rd or 4th week that the first letters came. The guards walked into the barn holding a sack, thin, brown, tied with a simple rope. We all froze. No one spoke. It was the same silence that falls over a church before a funeral begins. Mail. Mail from home. Mail from a continent on fire. Bianchi, the guard called. My knees weakened. He handed me an envelope, thin, wrinkled, smudged with dirt from travel. My name was written in my wife Rosa's handwriting. I knew it instantly. I had memorized the way she curved her R's when we were children. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were 2 pages and a piece of thread. A piece of thread taken from my daughter Elena's dress. My vision blurred. The letter began simply, "Nino, we are alive. Alive. Alive." Such a simple word. Such a heavy word. I read it 3 times, just to believe it. But the next line made my heart drop. Food is scarce. The Americans bombed the port again. We had boiled weeds for 2 nights. Elena asked for bread. I felt something tear inside my chest. On that same night, I had eaten warm potatoes and bread on the American farm. My daughter asked for bread, and I had eaten 2 slices. My wife had boiled weeds, and I had drunk coffee. A hot shame spread through me, one I still feel when I remember that moment. I clutched the piece of thread in my fist. I raised it to my nose. It smelled like nothing now. Nothing at all. But when I closed my eyes, I imagined the scent. The sweetness of my daughter's hair when I kissed her goodnight before leaving for war. The barn around me became blurry. The chatter faded. All I heard was my wife's words repeating, "We had boiled weeds." Elena asked for bread. I broke. Not loudly, not like some men who collapsed into sobs. No, I broke silently, the way men do when they are trying not to be seen. My hand pressed against my mouth. My shoulders shook. Tears dropped onto the letter, smudging her ink. Across from me, Luigi watched. His own letter lay unread in his lap. He said nothing. He didn't have to. We were all breaking together. When the guards finished handing out the mail, only about half the men were holding envelopes. The others waited, and waited, and waited. Nothing came. One of them, Sergio, from Genoa, stared at the empty sack as if he could force one more letter to appear. His lips began to tremble. His hands balled into fists. "No letter?" the guard asked gently. Sergio shook his head. "How long since the last one?" 6 months. 6 months. 6 months of silence. In a world where silence often meant death. He stood up suddenly and walked out of the barn. We found him behind the storage shed, sitting on the ground, his arms wrapped around his knees, staring at the horizon. I sat beside him. For a long time, we said nothing. "Finally," he whispered, "I don't know if they are dead." His voice cracked on the last word. I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder. He didn't look at me, but he didn't pull away. Sometimes, comfort is not in words. Sometimes, comfort is simply not being alone in the darkness. Mail changed us. It reminded us that we were not free. Not really. We were only safe because we were far from the hell our families faced every day. And it ignited something else too. Arguments. Small ones first, then louder, then so heated the guard had to intervene. It started that same week, when Carlo, always suspicious, always holding on to fascist pride, stood up and announced, "These Americans treat us well because they want to make US soft. They want us to forget who we are. They want to make us traitors." Sergio, still fighting his own grief, snapped back. "They treat us well because they are good people. Better than our officers ever treated us." Carlo stepped forward, fists tight. "They are the enemy, and my daughter is starving while I eat their bread," Sergio shouted. "If this is their trick, then maybe the world needs more tricks." Silence fell. Carlo looked around, searching for support. Some men nodded with him. Others stayed still. Some lowered their eyes. Unsure, I spoke quietly, unable to stop myself. "Maybe kindness is not weakness. Maybe it is strength." Carlo glared at me. "And what will you tell your daughter when she asks why you ate better under the enemy than she did at home? Will you tell her you became one of them?" His words cut me deeper than any blade could have. But I had no answer. None of us did. That night, after the arguments died down, the barn fell quiet. Men lay in their bunks, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The thin moonlight slipped through the gaps in the wooden walls, drawing silver lines across the floor. Some prayed. Some whispered their wives' names. Some held their letters like holy relics. I held the thread from my daughter's dress. It felt as fragile as the world itself. And as I looked at it, A realization settled heavily inside me. I was safe. I was fed. I was warm. And my family was not. War is cruel because it creates these impossible truths. Truths that shame you for surviving. Truths that break you even as they keep you alive. But here is the part that hurt the most. The Americans. They didn't know. And if they did know, I think they would have felt sorry for us. Not pity, not superiority. Just sympathy. Human sympathy. And that, perhaps, is the greatest wound war can give. When your enemy feels more human than your own leaders ever did. Some memories fade with age. Faces blur. Voices soften. Colors drain away. But some memories remain sharp forever. For me, the day of the snowstorm is still as clear as glass. Not because anything heroic happened. Not because anyone died. Not because it was dramatic in the way war stories are usually told. But because that day broke the last piece of fear still living in my chest. It happened in early December. We had been working in the fields for months by then. Enough time for calluses to regrow on our palms. Enough time for routines to feel familiar. Enough time for kindness to become confusingly normal. The sky that morning was a dull gray. The kind of color that warns you something is coming. The air felt heavy, thick, almost electric. Even the animals sensed it. The cows shifted restlessly. The dogs paced back and forth. But we were Italians. What did we know of Midwestern winters? So we continued working, gathering the last of the firewood, repairing a section of fence that had been damaged in the wind. The cold stung our cheeks, but the gloves and coats the farmers had given us kept us from freezing. Around noon, the first snow began. Thin flakes, light, soft, beautiful, even. Some of the men held out their hands, watching the flakes melt on their palms. One whispered, "It looks like soap." Another grinned, "It looks like home at Christmas." But within an hour, the snow changed. The gentle flakes thickened. The wind sharpened. The temperature dropped fast, so fast that the breath in front of us turned to mist and vanished instantly. Mr. Thompson, the farmer, looked up at the sky and cursed softly. "Bad storm," he said to the guard. "They can't stay out here." We didn't understand the words, but we understood the urgency. The storm was coming. A real one. The wind rose suddenly, like a giant inhaling. Snow whipped sideways, hitting our faces like sandpaper. We could barely see a few feet ahead. "Go!" the guard shouted. "Inside! Move!" Not the voice of a man commanding prisoners, the voice of a man worried. We ran through the fields. Snow piled on our shoulders, our hair, our backs. My eyelashes froze together. The world turned white, just white, an endless blur. I looked behind me once and saw Luigi stumbling. His foot slipped on the ice. He fell to his knees. Without thinking, I ran back, grabbed him under the arm, and pulled him up. The guard saw us and rushed over, grabbing Luigi's other arm. "This way!" he shouted. Together we half-dragged, half-carried him to the large wooden storage barn near the farmhouse. The door was thrown open, and we stumbled inside. Warmth greeted us, not heat, but the absence of wind. Straw, wood, shelter. More POWs poured in behind us, coughing, stamping their feet, brushing snow from their hair. The guard slammed the barn door shut, and for a few seconds, all we heard was our own breathing, loud, ragged, alive. Then, silence. Snow hammered the barn roof like thousands of fingers drumming at once. We thought that was it, shelter until the storm passed. Nothing more. But then the barn door opened again. Mr. Thompson walked in, carrying a large metal pot with steam rising from the top. His son followed with another, then his wife, with thick blankets piled in her arms. They did not hesitate. They did not wait for orders. They did not act like we were prisoners. They acted like we were guests, or maybe just men caught in a storm. They set the pots down, ladled hot liquid into tin cups, and handed them to us. Coffee. Not the weak, watered-down coffee we sometimes received from army supplies. Real coffee. Strong. Rich. The kind that warms your chest even before it reaches your tongue. I cupped the mug in both hands, letting the heat seep into my fingers. The farmers moved among us, placing blankets over our shoulders, checking to make sure we were warming up. Thompson knelt down beside Luigi, who was shivering violently. "You okay?" he asked, voice full of concern. Luigi didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He nodded. The farmer's wife put a hand on Luigi's cheek, testing the temperature. Then she handed him an extra blanket. I watched this quietly, my chest tightening. Not from cold, from something else. Something I struggled to name back then. Something simple and painful and beautiful now. Humanity. As we sat wrapped in blankets, steam rising from our cups, the barn door opened again, this time more gently. The little girl with the red scarf peeked in, the same child who had waved at us in the fields weeks earlier. Snow clung to her coat like tiny jewels. In her mittened hand, she held a cookie. A single cookie, golden brown, studded with chocolate chips. She walked up to me of all people, and held it out. "For you?" she said softly. The same words her father had spoken on my first day in America. I stared at her, stunned. I didn't want to take it. I had eaten that morning. My daughter had not, but refusing would seem rude, and something in her innocent eyes told me she only wanted to give, nothing more. So I took the cookie. My hands shook. "Thank you," I said, voice cracking. She giggled, then ran back to the house before the cold swallowed her. I looked at the cookie for a long moment. Then I broke it in half and handed the other piece to Luigi. His eyes filled with tears. We ate it slowly, like men sharing a sacrament, inside that barn, wrapped in blankets, sipping hot coffee with snow roaring outside. I realized something. The Americans didn't see us as enemies that day. They didn't see us as soldiers. They didn't see us as prisoners. They saw us as men caught in a storm. And sometimes, that is all human beings truly are. A man with cold hands. A man far from home. A man who misses his daughter. A man who wants to survive another night. I think that was the moment the last of my fear melted. Not because the Americans convinced me with words. Not because of propaganda. Not because of rules. But because a little girl with red cheeks and snow in her hair gave me half a chocolate chip cookie. A simple gift. A small moment. But sometimes, a small moment can change a man forever. Winter passed slowly after the storm, settling over the farm like a thick wool blanket. Our days found a rhythm: work, meals, small conversations, occasional laughter. The fear that once wrapped itself around us like a second skin grew thinner and thinner, replaced by something far more dangerous: familiarity, routine, gentleness, trust. It is a strange thing to feel safe in the land of your enemy. Stranger still to realize that enemy no longer feels like the right word. But war has a way of reminding you where you stand. And it reminded us in the cruelest way possible. It was early August when the guards arrived with somber expressions. The sky was hot and heavy, the air buzzing with insects, the fields shimmering with green. A perfect summer day. But their faces told a different story. We were gathered outside the barn. Mr. Thompson stood off to the side with his wife and children, hat held low, as if attending a funeral. The guard cleared his throat and spoke loudly, but gently. "Italy has surrendered." The words didn't hit all at once. There was a brief silence, an empty, hollow space, and then the sound began. Gasps, cries, a man dropping to his knees, another shouting "no," over and over, until his voice cracked. I felt the world tilt beneath me. Surrendered? Italy? Our homeland? Gone? It felt impossible, unthinkable, like being told the sun had fallen out of the sky. Some men wept openly. Others stood frozen, unable to accept it. Carlo punched the side of the barn until his knuckles bled. Sergio sat in the dirt and buried his face in his hands. For me, the shock was quieter, heavier, like a stone placed gently on my chest, but too heavy to lift. I thought of my wife, my daughter, my parents, sitting under a sky now claimed by foreign planes, eating whatever scraps they could find, living in a country defeated, a defeated homeland, a defeated soldier, a defeated father. I felt myself shrinking, not from shame alone, but from grief. As we stood there, absorbing the news, Mr. Thompson approached us slowly. His face was pale with sympathy. He took off his hat, held it to his chest, and said quietly, sorry. An American farmer apologizing for the fall of Italy. The irony felt like a punch. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My throat tightened until I could barely breathe. Luigi began sobbing, hard, loud, uncontrolled. The farmer's wife stepped forward and gently touched his arm, whispering words we could not understand, but words heavy with compassion. And that was the moment. The moment I realized something terrible. The enemy was feeling sorry for us. Not mocking, not celebrating. Sorry. That hurt more than any insult ever could. Because pity means power. Pity means they won. Pity means we lost. I would rather endure 100 blows than one genuine look of sympathy from a man I once called an enemy. But the kindness was real. And so the pain was real too. A week later, we were told we would be transported to another facility for repatriation. The war was ending. POWs would be returned home. Home. The word felt both heavenly and terrifying. Our last morning on the farm was quiet. Even the birds seemed to understand the weight of the day. We packed our few belongings, letters, scraps of wood we had carved, the thread from my daughter's dress, the gloves Thompson had given me on my first day. The men gathered outside the barn. Thompson came forward, carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. He handed it to me. "For you," he said softly. Inside was a pair of leather work gloves, new ones, strong, brown, smelling of oil and honest labor. My throat closed. I shook my head. I cannot accept this. He pushed the gloves into my chest, firm but gentle. "You can," he said, "and you will." Then he extended his hand. I looked at it, calloused, weathered, strong, and slowly placed my own in his. Enemy hands. Joined. He squeezed once. A final goodbye. Mrs. Thompson hugged two of the men. The children waved, their faces scrunched in sadness. The little girl with the red scarf ran up to me and pressed something small into my palm. A button. Wooden. Carved with a clumsy heart shape. Probably cut from scrap. Probably made the night before. "For you," she whispered. I wanted to say something. Anything. But my voice was gone. Then the truck arrived. We climbed aboard with heavy hearts. As the engine rumbled to life, I looked back one last time. The barn, the fields, the farmhouse, the family, the place where I had come to understand the truth. The heart does not recognize enemies the way politics does. The Thompsons waved until the truck disappeared down the dusty road, and I kept waving too, long after they had vanished from sight. When we reached home months later, Italy was unrecognizable. Bombed-out buildings, bread lines stretching around corners, children thin as shadows, women with eyes that had forgotten what hope looked like. My wife Rosa greeted me with tears, holding Elena tight against her side. My daughter stared at me at first, unsure if the stranger before her was truly her father. War takes more than land. War takes time away from children. Time you can never earn back, people whispered behind our backs. "POW, coward." They ate well in America while our children starved. And I had no answer, because part of it was true. But they did not know the whole story. They did not know about the gloves, the coffee, the blankets, the shared words, the laughter in the field, the snowstorm, the cookie, the small humanity that kept us human. I told Rosa everything, every detail, every kindness. She listened, then took my hand gently. "Then maybe," she said, "not all enemies are enemies." And I felt something in me loosen something I had carried since the day I was captured. Now, as an old man, I still think about that farm, about Mr. Thompson's hand on my shoulder, about the girl with the wooden button, about the storm that nearly buried us, about how strangers became protectors, about how an enemy became a teacher. And if there is one truth I want my grandchildren to remember, it is this: war makes us enemies, but kindness makes us human. The world tries to divide us with flags, borders, and lies. But kindness, small, humble kindness, is stronger than all of them. Because a pair of gloves can heal a wound propaganda created. A cup of coffee can restore dignity. A cookie can change a heart. And a single human moment can outlive an entire war. That, children, is the story I carried home with me. And that is the story I will carry to my grave.